Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the High Vibe Living podcast with Erin Liberty and friends. Today, I have the most beautiful soul with me here today. And just like we do, I'm going to be getting to know Claudia along with you guys at the same time, which makes it so authentic and exciting. So, Claudia is a business leadership navigator. Did I get that right? Business growth navigator. And she and I have just connected very briefly, and I just love her energy, and I'm so excited for you guys to get to meet her. So Claudia, thank you for being here, and please, thank you. Yes, I just appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be such a great conversation. So why don't I just take a moment to introduce yourself to our audience? Who is Claudia?
I feel like it's taken me 55 years to really answer that question. I would say, just like what we just shared with each other, I'm a multidimensional person. I'm Latina, as you can see, daughter of immigrant parents. I'm a kind, generous soul, and I really feel like my life purpose here is to help people get unstuck so they can take the step into their next. Because as you and I both believe in, we are constantly arriving until the day that we leave this body that we have here, and our spirit transcends to another realm. I'm also a business navigator. I love entrepreneurship and all the opportunities that it can bring a person, the doors that it opens for them to continually be evolving and to be able to bring in the resources that one needs to live their life in presence and joy. And so I would say I'm a nerd in the sense that I really love Star Wars and comic books. My husband has brought that into my world, and I've embraced it. I love Comic-Con. And I also love numbers. I love the financial piece of business, although I'm self-taught. I'm not a bookkeeper, a CPA, totally self-taught and fell in love with numbers, probably because I have always been a bridge between my parents that would only speak Spanish, and I was the bridge to English. And now in my role as a business navigator, I love helping be that bridge for entrepreneurs to understand the language of money and numbers. So I love translating numbers for my clients and helping them learn a new language, and how numbers actually and that data actually helps them tell the story of their business and gain awareness on the changes that they can make to really leverage money as a source to have a greater impact in the mission that they're carrying through their business or in their personal life.
There's so much goodness in what you just said. I am just like so excited to have this dialogue with you. The first thing that I find so interesting is how you talk about money and, financial numbers as telling a story. And it's really interesting because I don't know if you know this about me, but I actually am a trained CPA, CGA. So I did go to school for business and then subsequently my accounting designation. And it's so interesting because I just did that because my accounting teacher said I had a great grade in, accounting. So that's what I should do. And I did it. And I remember feeling so different than every other person that I worked with when I was in the financial sector because of course, I had the skill set to be able to do the balances and the checks and all those things. But for me, it was never about the spreadsheet or the financial statement. It was really about the story that it was telling. And that is why I think in my corporate career, I was so successful in more of the commercial type roles because I really understood the numbers and I had that foundation of understanding the financials and getting the opportunity to work in so many different sectors. But it is so true, so true. I worked with so many accountants who really weren't passionate about their work. I believed they could become passionate about their work if they looked for the deeper meaning behind the numbers, as opposed to just, doing the calculations and trying to get it to balance. So I really, really love that perspective.
Yeah. And I had to grow into that. It's thanks to a CPA by the name of Maida Peleus here, who basically was a client of mine. And she just took me under her wings
Mm.
and said, I really love what you're doing here. If you ever need any kind of support, come to me. And I had this trauma from grade school that I wasn't good at math. And so
Mm.
when she basically affirmed that I was doing something right as a CPA. She was my client. She was highly impressed with the business. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back to City College and I'm going to figure out what is the missing piece here. And so I went back to City College, took Math 101, I think it was. It might have not even been 101, it might have been 99. And I figured out that for me, where my big gap was, it was in actually multiplying very quickly. So I did the rabbit hole into like, okay, I'm going to learn and I'm going to just master it. And then so when we were when she invited me to come back and I hired her as my CPA, we would do this thing that was called Dreaming Through Financials, where we would put up my P&L. And actually what we were basically doing was tax planning, but I would call it Dreaming Through Financials. And we would literally look at the P&L. She would translate it for me, but because I could do the math very quickly, and I'm only talking about multiplication and basically adding and subtracting. We could look at the financials. She could share the deeper meaning behind the numbers, as you said, and then I really could have a visual picture of how those numbers tied to how I was going to hit my next revenue goal. And at this point, business was really complex because, as you know, Erin, when you start pushing seven figures, there you got labor to deal with. You have need more professional advising. I had a financial well-being team at that point. I was learning as an entrepreneur how to leverage their advice and really to help me grow to the next level. But all of this started from a CPA, my client made a really just saying, hey, you're doing something really interesting here. And I'm curious. I'd love to know a little bit more. And if you ever need help understanding the numbers, please come see me. And so she helped me see that my right brain, creative kind of brain way of processing that was more creative could be bridged and I could step into like whole brain thinking. And actually, it was a gift, not a hindrance that I wasn't totally left brain.
Yeah, I love that. There's, again, so much that you're saying that I want to touch on and talk about, especially, when it comes to those limiting beliefs about ourselves, right? And the whole idea that we came here to experience the good, the bad, the ugly, like, and everything in between. And we wouldn't be who we are if we didn't discover that we had that belief about ourselves and the power that comes from being able to observe that and then to break it down, right? And you're right, it does come through those moments of awareness, because you had to be open to receive that from your client in order for that to allow you to see, hey, yeah, if I just looked at this from a different perspective, then I'm allowing myself to overcome that limiting belief and to see how I can do it in the most authentic way. And
Yeah.
I think, yeah, and I really, really love that story, and I can resonate with it so much in many different aspects of my life. And I'd love to get your perspective on this thought that I have. You know, there was many opportunities for me, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, cycles, right? So a cycle without awareness is just a cycle. Like if you don't know that you're in it and you don't know that you're going through it, it's really just on repeat. It's like, when we used to have our little cassette tapes and we would just listen to the same song over and over. That's what I feel like. But as soon as you become aware, and as soon as you're able to notice the limiting belief, the cycle, whatever it is, and you're more open, it completely changes what you believe is possible for yourself. And that is really what I would say is kind of like the crux of, when somebody's ready to really open themselves up and become more conscious of who they are, what they're here to do, and what's possible for them when they really become the creator of their own reality. It's that piece right there that you hit on, was like, she saw me.
Mm-hmm.
So you were, validated in that, but open enough to see that you just needed that validation to be able to change your perspective. And how
Yeah.
powerful is that?
And I would say that that cycle that you're talking about and that awareness, I I had a lot of those situations. The most powerful one, though, the one that I call my awakening moment, it happens, I'm laying in bed, I'm look over and it's 3:31 on the clock. That is like what I would call like the witching hour for me, where when I was really stressed out and overwhelmed and really stretched thin by my business, I would always wake up at that time. But there comes a day where I am just frozen in bed. It's 3:31, and um, I have all these thoughts coming through my head. These what you refer to as limiting beliefs, right? I'm
Mhm.
failing. I'm basically failing. I'm failing myself. I'm failing my team. Imposter syndrome kind of thoughts would float in. And then at that point, um, I really hear this, it's almost like a whisper. It came to me and it said, you're just not enough. And
Mm,
I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Because the first of the thoughts, they were like I was in I was a Roman gladiator in an arena. They are loud, right? And
mhm,
then this one whispered to me, and at that point, I thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't, I mean, this is way too much. And I don't want to go on. I don't have the answers. And what I realize now in retrospect is that I had reached the level of burnout where my body could no longer, was no longer equipped to handle that stress. So I was having suicide ideation thoughts
mm,
in that moment because to me the thought that followed that one was, what if I just like forget about this? But I wasn't talking about business only. I mean, I was talking
mhm,
about life. And then I start to cry. One tear flows out, then all the other tears, they just start flowing. I'm ugly crying. I'm a seven-figure founder of a business, which on the outside looks super successful.
mm,
We were recognized by the California Senate 3 times because 50% of our team had bought their home here in Santa Barbara, California. I was on stages winning awards. I was written up in articles. I was named Latino Small Business of the Year in my community. I mean, this is all happening, but I am laying in bed holding on to my pillow like it's a life raft and then cr crying uncontrollably when my husband kind of shakes me and says, "What's wrong, Pudding?" And it was in that moment that I told him I couldn't go on, but I didn't ever tell him. It was like I literally was thinking of thoughts of like, how can I just end this? And that is the amount of stress that I was under, trying to keep all these balls up in the air and trying to figure out business complexity that I like my business didn't have the structure. I built that on sheer grit and resiliency because that's all I had ever seen from my long line of entrepreneurial family that they built businesses to survive. And today, what I say is, I'm not build, I had to unlearn survival mode business and actually step into a business that is going to support my life and helps me thrive. And so that is really the journey that I have after that awakening moment is how can I personally grow? How can I build a business that supports me and my neurodiversity? I didn't know I was neurodiverse at that time. That's probably why I was so stressed. But that's what that awakening moment sparked. And I can look back and I can say I had a lot of those patterns happen. And every time I rebuilt, but unconsciously, without
Mhm.
awareness until finally Beyond Ordinary Business was born, which was in full consciousness, in full alignment with my values and awareness of my neurodiversity. But we're all on this journey to evolve until we get to the point where that one moment is the big awakening moment that shifts your whole life. Would
Mhm.
you agree?
Oh, I would agree. I am your story. There's just so many parallels to my experience and I just honor you for being so vulnerable and sharing it. It's just so beautiful. You said so many wonderful things that I want to touch on. You talked about how there were these thoughts, the fears, the struggles that were so loud and then all of a sudden you heard this quiet voice. And I talk a lot about this with clients and on the podcast is like we're here to experience the ego. And, the ego is really born from fear and thrives on fear, and it is loud. It's
Mm-hmm.
meant to be the loudest voice, in our heads because it truly, I like to always look at everything, it has a purpose and it's a gift. And the ego is there to protect us when we need the protecting. But the ego doesn't recognize time or age or experience. And, when we are conscious and we are, connected mind, body, and soul, we have the ability to speak to our ego, right? And what happened for you, is so beautiful in that moment. You were open enough to hear your intuition. And because it was a quiet whisper that spoke to your soul, that is what really drove change for you. You were ready to hear it, your body. I always say, we have our mind, body, and we have our soul, and each aspect of our human experience contributes to our life and what we create. And in the beginning, especially for myself, one is always louder than the other. So I always say, like, I was very much in my mind, very analytical, as you know, like in the corporate world, that was what we relied on. And for the first 40 years of my life, I defined myself for my education, for my career, because of my mind, because I was very, bright. And that defined me. And so I always listened to my mind because I was most proud of my mind. My body, not so much. And so I didn't listen to my body and I shamed my body a lot. And in the end, while it wasn't my intuition that woke me up, I would say it was my body. Because here I am, 35 was the first time it really spoke to me loudly. Was trying to do it all. I had a young family. Both my husband and I were in the male dominated energy sector. I was, scratching and clawing my way up the glass ceiling. And I was going to boot camp and eating everything perfect, but yet I was blowing up and my hair was falling out. And that was really the first awakening for me. Not the biggest, but the first, where I was just like, what is going on? Something is not aligning here. Like, I am 35 years old and my body, it feels like it's 80, and all of my hormones were going crazy. I got diagnosed with PCOS, pre-diabetes, all these autoimmunes. And that was the first time where I was like, okay, something's out of balance here. So it's just so interesting how you talked about the quiet voice, because like I said, we have our mind and our ego. It's there to protect us. Our body is there to protect us and give us signals. And so is our intuition. And they're all working together. And in my experience, my first sort of big aha, it was my body telling me. And in your big awakening, it was your intuition. And I'm like, for me, there's always an order. So first my mind speaks, then my body speaks. And when my body doesn't listen, that's when my intuition comes in. And usually what happens is, like, I'm stopped dead in my tracks. And the universe says, listen. So I really, really love that you shared that. And it really just resonated with me so deeply.
Well, thank you for sharing about the body, because what happens after that, because I wasn't really listening. But I was still kind of had the same go, 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 I was still slightly burning myself out. I had a little bit more awareness. The next sign is one morning the dog was scratching at the door, and so I jumped out of bed and I ran and I opened the door, and I had a bout of vertigo. I had never experienced vertigo before. And I hit my head on this big antique credenza that we had. And I could feel myself falling and thinking, oh my God, am I having a stroke? Or I'm not ready to die today. I still have so much to do. And I don't want to leave my family. I'm just like, I was just starting to study mindfulness and meditating, and my life was just it there was like this big opening, right, and that I was excited about. So I end up hitting the floor and I try to get up, but I can't get up. And it's at that time that, my husband came, my sister was spending the night, my mom was there. So they're all looking down at me and they're saying, okay, can you get up? And I said, no. And they had to end up carrying me with my little plastic bag because I was nauseous into the car, and we went to the emergency room. So that was like 8 week um, trajectory of only walking with a cane, have no control, could not work. And that's when I realized, okay, this is the body. Like now, if I'm not going to listen to my mind and I'm not going to follow my intuition, this is my body telling me something has to change. This is not your life is not sustainable. So I did have the whole gamut, I would say, of experiences that were trying to get my attention, that life, the way that I had created it for myself, really wasn't going to be sustainable for me, and that I had to pivot and try something different.
That's so beautiful. And, like, we all have been there. We all have been there. I can relate so much. And still to this day, like, I feel, even though, I really have done my work, I feel really enlightened. We're still a soul having a human experience. Life happens. And, recently our family has had some traumatic events, and my body has been telling me, you need to rest, and also being a healer. So I just think it's so valuable and so important to share this story from that perspective as well, because I think there's so many people out there who don't necessarily understand that, our emotions are energy in motion, right? Our
Mhm.
thoughts create our reality, and that is also in the quantum energetic field. And that's why, for me, going through my own awakening and my own journey, having been somebody like yourself who was committed to personal development my entire life, always seeking outside of myself, mind you, once I learned about energy, I
Mhm.
did the education piece, the outside of myself. The inside work was, the mindfulness. I started there, started doing all that work, learning about my thoughts, reprogramming, which I feel like is the gateway. That's really what opened you up, because when you quiet the mind, then you can listen to the body and
Yeah.
the intuition. So that for me was amazing. But what really brought it all together for me and brought to me was, the concept of energy and the
Mhm.
quantum field and the science behind how we perceive the world, and that we're really the creators of our own reality. So even when you think about the science of how, we're viewing our experience, like I'm looking at you right now, I'm experiencing through my eyes, through my ears, touch, like this sort of thing, and then that's being reflected back and going through my brain to create my experience. So it's like, wow, when you think about that and you understand mindset and you know about the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, it's like, wow, this is so powerful to know that I'm really in control of my experience and my reality, and how powerful that is. And when you, like, for me, and I'd love your thoughts on this, but for me, the real exciting moment was when I learned that when you work with energy and you can truly protect your energy, so your experience in your environment is just your own,
Mhm.
that is
Yeah.
when I am able to fully use all of the tools that are at my disposal, my mind, body, and soul. And I'm to the point now where I never used to turn off my mind. Now I actually have to say, okay, mind,
Mhm.
turn
Yeah.
on, because I live my life just fully aware and conscious and grounded, that when it's time to call on my mind, I have to consciously do
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely. So, yes to everything you said. I feel like for me, although I don't express it in the same way that you're expressing it. I'm the way that I think about it is, uh, well, first I have ADHD, right? So I know that energy for me is a resource the same way that money is, the same way that time is.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
because of the ADHD, what I have to practice is energy, or what I call capacity, right? Management.
mhm.
And the thought that's coming to me right now is this little meme it's a drawing, right? That I used to post on my wall. And it's a woman, and she's like, her hair's all frazzled, her hands are up, and she's like, okay, I have a little bit of energy left. Who wants it? And that was like a reminder that nobody wants that, right? Because when you're working with clients or team members or your family, what they really want from you is for you to be resourced. They want you to have the energy to be fully present with them and experience that moment without anything running through your head, distracting you from being completely present in the moment.
Mhm,
And so I feel like in my journey, what I help entrepreneurs navigate is, how do we keep you out of entrepreneurial poverty, which is your energy poor, your time poor, and your money poor? How do we build the structures for you personally through to manage that capacity and that energy and your time, and by focusing on what is, important for you. And then we're going to invest what is important. We're going to invest the time, energy, and money into what is important for you. So you're clear, you're focused, you're fulfilled, and in addition, you're funded today in life. and we're planning also for funding your life in the future. But this all requires structures and a framework that is authentically yours to be able to manage this and then to enjoy it. Because in the future, that's great. That causes a little bit of anxiety, right? If we live
Mhm.
too much in the past, that brings us to depression. And so the only place where we can really be in full alignment, full joy, is in here in the present moment.
Mhm.
And that
I love
requires
that.
us to have the energy to be able to be fully resourced to be here.
Mhm.
And with the ADHD, for me, I think the key was I had a lot of emotional dysregulation. That really was what was preventing me from reaching the potential that I always thought that I had. And in the emotional dysregulation comes the shame spirals, the imposter syndromes, all of the mindset stuff that you were talking about. And so I always felt like a person that was overcommitted, emotionally dysregulated, time blind, had problems initiating tasks, and I disorganized. But yet I knew that I had the potential because I'm creative. I'm a risk taker. When I'm onto something, I hyper focus, and I'm really great at ideation, right? Like creating ideas and visioning and fast adaptation. Everything an entrepreneur needs to be successful. But I also thought that I was broken, right? Until the ADHD uh, comes to light. And then I realize, oh, the key here is only structuring my life around energy management. That's it. That's what I have to figure out. And I have to figure out how to translate my feelings into data that will help me adapt when I'm off track. So that's the personal piece of it. That business piece of it. Because if you are a leader who is present, you can build a profitable business that supports your life. And if you get into those loops with an awareness, you know in which loop you're in, and you have the toolkit that you authentically build, an authentic toolkit for you that you build back, and you find amazing guides that support you in building this, like you, Erin. And for me, for entrepreneurs who are stretched thin in their business, that's why they come to me because I can help them. Because I've navigated that for myself, I can help them build their own toolkit, their own framework for their version of what joy and success looks like in their life. And that's what I've been called to do. You can call it a business navigator, whatever you want. I used to get stuck on that. And I just realized that that's all I'm here to do. This is my life's purpose. And I mean, that's all I need. Of course, I need a financial resources and I need the time and money, but to me, that is like winning the lottery every day that I see my clients step into that place.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's again so much goodness in what you're talking about. I can relate on many, many, many levels. I think, the energy that you're talking about, the word I use for clients, and I love having these conversations because, we all are going to resonate with
Mhm.
someone.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, when we step back, it really is just about finding what gives you energy. And people get stuck on the words like, I don't know what my soul purpose is, or I don't know what my career is supposed to be. And, the world tells us that you should want to be certain things, right? And
Yeah.
so that was it for me, is like, I didn't know who I was. I knew what lit me up, but I didn't think that could be my career. And now, sort of again, in hindsight, and hindsight's such a beautiful gift. And I always say to clients, like, you're not starting over. You're not, a failure because you want, whether it's a new career or you're starting a business later in life or early, it doesn't matter. The idea is that we all we're here to evolve and grow. And we're meeting that version of ourselves wherever they're at. And so for me, I know that I have such a unique story that is authentic to me, that has given me the masculine traits. Because again, same with you, like undiagnosed, but I would say I have a lot of the ADHD traits, right? I'm extremely creative. I am highly sensitive. I am overly emotional sometimes, but I know that those are my gifts. And, I am the most creative when I can tap in to that emotion and that experience. And so for me, having to be different and be in an environment where I was surrounded by a lot of people who didn't understand me, I went through this journey of, the shame and the guilt and the peace where I was questioning myself. But then when I was able to become the observer, and this is what I teach in my course about how to find who you are, to, feel the guilt and shame and to release those emotions, and then to become the observer, to recognize that every single experience was for me. Every single feeling was for me. It was to show me what I was passionate about, what I wasn't passionate about, where I needed to grow, where I needed to evolve. And so I spent 20 years, in the corporate world, and now I know that I was experiencing what it was like to feel forced into things, so that I know what is not for me, and now on the flip side, I know what is for me. And I didn't lose any time, because I don't have a 3-year cycle anymore. I bounce back and make decisions and evolve and change within seconds, like, because I am connected mind, body, and soul. And I think a lot of people, and I'd love your perspective on this, and it'll probably be our last one because time is running out on us, which is so sad because it's such a great conversation. But I want to ask you, I feel like people really do get stuck in the emotion of reinventing themselves. And sometimes there's a moment of, excitement, but a lot of times there is that imposter syndrome, the guilt, the shame about having to start over. And I've really, really been doing a lot of work talking about and educating, and also with clients around the idea of, if we believe that we're here and we're multidimensional beings, and if we believe that we're having a conscious experience, a soul in a human body, and if you believe that we're influenced by, who we were in past lives and all those things, think about that. When you think about the experience, it's really not about time at all. So for us to feel guilt and shame about, myself personally spending 40 years, in a career that wasn't a right fit for me, that's going to keep me stuck and in a low vibration. But to flip the switch and to think about, wow, like what an honor it was to have that experience. And now I have all of this business acumen and education behind me that I can help people with. It's just such a beautiful thing. So I'm curious your perspective on time, I guess, in growth.
Yeah. So one thing that I just want to say that I loved that you said, I just want to point it out, is that life is happening for me. And I studied with a woman, her name is Madeline Marin Tete, and she owns a spa up in Canada. And I studied with her under uh, a program that she had that was called Super Manifesting Through the Seasons. And it it can sound like, oh, we just go and we just show up and things are going to happen to us. But what I loved and what I've adapted and integrated in my own life in regards to time and for life happening for us is that I don't see time in a linear way anymore. What I see is that I am living through cycles. Those are
Mm-hmm.
seasons, those are their years, their days, and the cycles life, right? So I go from child to to crone. I'm in my crone cycle right now, and I will come back to child, before I die. And hopefully I will make it through some more cycles there. But I just see that we're experiencing life through cycles. And
Hmm.
I'm so grateful for this teaching that Madeline shared with me. It comes from indigenous wisdom. And the native tribe that she worked with was the Blackfoot. And when I did my research, they considered that you were just stepping into adulthood when you were at about the age of 50 because life was happening for you, because you were gaining all these beautiful experience and wisdom that you then could step into adulthood and be part of a community and share that wisdom with the community. And so I see kind of life from this perspective. It was easy for me to adapt it because I do come from a collectivist environment. I grew up with my Mexican parents through that lens, and I was always battling the individualistic perspective with the collective perspective. And today I'm just here somewhere in the middle, right? Sharing with people that action brings clarity, and clarity and life experience brings wisdom. And that really is how we can, that's what we're here to, we're called upon. Erin, you and I and others like us, we're called to share that wisdom with people who are maybe a little bit earlier on in those cycles in that journey so that they can basically have their awakening moment. And if we get stuck on linear time, sometimes I feel like that is just a distraction that's there to keep us kind of in the status quo, mindset, and being consumers, right? Consumers of things.
Hmm.
Because
I
I can
totally
tell you,
agree.
I consume a lot less now that I am conscious, awake, and in my power and know exactly what my purpose is and living my life in as a present leader uh, than I ever did. Because back then I was just trying to buy things. Today I invest my money, and I'm always seeking someone who has wisdom that they can share with me for where I'm located in my cycles of life. I don't ever think I'll stop that because I believe I'm continually evolving, and I'm really proud that I get to be that wisdom person for the people who choose me as the person who's going to guide them through entrepreneurship. So that's kind of my take on what you were speaking to.
Hmm. I love that. It's so, so beautiful. And I think, like you said, the people that are going to choose you, I feel like when you are your authentic self and when you're living in your truth and you're doing your life's work, that energy and the just pure joy, all of the high vibrational
Yeah.
emotions just radiate from you. And you know what? There are people who I find come in and out of my experience, like they'll reach out there. Sometimes, we don't know why we're attracted to certain people or
Mhm.
certain energies. And like you said, the most important thing is taking action. And I encourage people to like be curious, to ask questions, to follow those nudges. Like if there's a reason that somebody keeps coming into your mind or onto your feed or, whatever it might be, it's for you. And
Mhm.
you're so right. Like I love how you talked about consuming because that is really, from my perspective, the most important piece of all of this. When you look at it as everything is happening for you, when you look at it that, there is no coincidence that I met Claudia. Like, when you really look at life as like it's already planned out for me, I just have to be a vibrational match to everything that is meant for me. And if we are, in a low vibration, that's okay. Maybe we're going to attract some things that aren't meant for us, but we're going to be shown that those aren't meant for us. And then we're going to raise our vibration. And that's why time, it really doesn't matter, like you were saying, because we can jump from low vibration to high vibration just by shifting our mindset and our thoughts in an instant. So this conversation has been so, so enjoyable and enlightening. And I am so grateful to have met you. I definitely want to learn more. I want to learn more about the mindful scale method. I want to learn more about how you help people navigating business. This is the High Vibe Living podcast. So I have one last question for you.
Sure.
When it comes to living a high vibrational life, is there anything that you would want to share with our guests that you haven't already touched on?
Wow. I mean, there's so much. I I feel it's really what I want to share is that the most beautiful relationship that you can have is the one that you have with yourself. And so really it's about making the time um, to be with yourself, to resource yourself so that you have an opportunity to not be distracted and be able to get those downloads, those creative downloads, those aha moments that you listen to your intuition. Um, and when you are in that space and your intuition is telling you, you feel it that this is not for me, but you try to override that there is no shame and judgment in there. It's just going to give you some feedback. It's going to be a feedback loop so that you're clearer the next time when what is for you and what isn't for you. So I mean that is what I would love to share. I feel like we're always, especially as women, the way that I was brought up, and I'm just saying this is my lived experiences. I was always brought up to be there for everyone, for my sisters, for my husband, for my parents, for my employees. And so that relationship with me and really knowing myself and loving myself for who I am in my flaws and in my strengths and the good things about me. Um, See, I'm going from like I'm doing that, dual thing there, but in my wholeness, let me say, I'm catching myself in the like dual, the black and white thinking. Let me reframe that. In my wholeness, that I really do love myself. And that's the relationship, the self-love relationship. And it takes work. And it's not something that you just do once. It's something that you have to build practices on a day on a for a day-to-day basis to help you strengthen that self-love.
Mhm. That is so beautiful. So, so much wisdom that you're sharing from your lived experience. And I do 100% agree. Having, everything, we talked about this briefly, having everything that the world tells me I should want
Mhm.
and feeling like I had nothing at all. That was my journey back to myself and taking the long way around to self-love. And that doesn't mean that some of those thoughts don't creep in every once in a while, but it means that like you said, I have the foundational tools and I have, the skills to be able to recognize, catch whatever's happening and to just redirect myself back to the oneness of love.
Yeah.
So I so, so extremely grateful to have met you. Thank you for taking the time to join us on the High Vibe Living podcast, and I'm sure we will talk again soon.
Thank you for having me. You never know who you're gonna meet. I'm just grateful that you were put on my path and we are now in our ecosystem together.
Yes, I feel chills when you say that. So talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.